everyone. Welcome back to Soul Light Reflections. Today, I want to have a really honest and raw conversation. I feel like I say that all the time because that's what this podcast is. But this is something that hit me like a total aha moment this morning. It's something that I feel like I've known deep down that I've resisted fully acknowledging and embracing until now. But I'm ready to talk about it. The second I realized it was like, I need to record this. And so here I am. I think it's really funny, first of all, how I just jump into these episodes just like, hey, and we're going. And I know that those of you that are here for it. And I really appreciate you being here. So I just want to throw that little note in there because I feel like a lot of podcasts have like 5 minutes of just an intro and talking a while and saying what's been going on in their life. And I'm like, yo, I had an idea. Here it is. So thanks for being here. What I want to talk about is that I realized I was not fully naming my past experiences for what they actually were. And I think that a lot of us do this. This feels like a really relatable topic. I talk a lot about how we shouldn't compare our journey to other people, right? Like we need to just put one foot in front of the other and just keep going on our own path. And how just because someone else's life looks better doesn't mean that ours is lacking or bad or anything like that. But I realized that I've been doing the same thing, but like in reverse. I've been assuming that because other people have been through worse experiences and traumas, my experiences and traumas weren't bad enough to be labeled as abuse. And in doing that, I have been gaslighting myself for like, that's what it is. I have to call it what it is. I've been gaslighting myself. I have created resistance in my own healing journey without fully realizing it. And I want to unpack that today, like right here with you. I want to talk about how sometimes we can downplay our own trauma. And that stops us from fully processing it. I also want to talk about what happens when you actually do make the space for it. When you take away these shitty layers of judgment, of comparison, of fear, of guilt, of shame, what the possibility is on the other side of finding that actual healing instead of going in this crazy spiral cycle over and over and over like I've been doing. Now, it's been many years since I went through experiences with abuse. However, the experiences with abuse with my ex-husband to start, I was with him for 11 years. 11 years. And it was never a healthy relationship, honestly. If I look back, I can find in my journals, in notes in my phone, I actually recently found one, notes on notes on notes about how hurt I was and exactly the situations that were happening, like laying it out word for word. And when I read them now, I go, oh my God, honey, what? You didn't open your eyes. Like you should not ever be writing about these things. You should be able to talk about them and move through them. And the fact that you couldn't, like, you should have gotten out, right? Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I knew that the past relationships were not healthy. And even my relationship with my ex-boyfriend, I recently did an episode about that. So you can go back and listen to that one. But that was only 6 months. And the amount of abuse that happened during that was wild. And I think that part of me gaslighting myself is because I don't use the word or think of the word abuse lightly whatsoever. And I think that in the common usage of that word, we think of physical abuse. What I experienced was not physical abuse, and I'm so fucking grateful for that every single day. However, it got really, really close many times. And it got to the point where my ex-boyfriend was physically abusive to my dog, which in some ways is worse. I'm like, why didn't you just take it out on me? Like, why her? She's so innocent. She did nothing. Like, anyway, that's in that other episode. But I don't necessarily want to bring in specific situations from these past two relationships that I'm referring to, but I want to make a point that you're not alone if you have stuck in a relationship that you knew was not healthy for you. And if you keep making excuses and telling yourself, oh, it's not that bad. I'm not physically hurt. It's fine. Maybe I'm just too sensitive. Maybe I am misremembering things. Maybe like they're not gaslighting me. I just don't remember it correctly. When I was married, I was constant, and before we were even married, we were together for 9 years before we got married. So even before then, I was constantly doubting myself because he would turn everything around on me. And I'm talking everything and anything. If I brought up any type of concern, it could be something as small as a dish breaking all the way up to like, hey, you were out really late after work. Like, where were you? It always became about how I was the problem. He would yell at me. He would deflect. He would call me a crazy bitch, and so much worse. He would make me feel like I was the one causing issues. And because I wanted the relationship to work and I believed that it could, I believed him. And even in the moments when I didn't fully believe him, I would just fold anyway because I would be like, well, this is how we keep the peace. It's not worth it. And then after leaving LA, leaving where I was living with my ex-husband during COVID, I ended up in another relationship. And so I had just moved to Portland and I met him like 2 weeks after I moved to Portland and immediately infatuated. I was hesitant to get into another relationship, but it felt so easy and it just kind of flowed. And I was like, all right, I guess this is happening. And the thing is, that relationship felt so freaking different because my ex-boyfriend was so nice to my face. But then over time, I started getting like really deep intuitive pings, like knots in my stomach, even though like we were just hanging out, like nothing was even happening. And I would just like, my body was just not okay. My rheumatoid arthritis symptoms were getting worse. Body keeps score, guys. Listen to your body's cues. But because of everything that I went through with my ex-husband, I was convinced that I couldn't trust myself. I couldn't trust my body. And it should have been a wake-up call. When I left my ex-husband, it should have been like, hey, you let go of a lot of your power. Let's call that all back in and let's not ever let that happen again. To be 100% honest, I don't think I had enough time between then. Because although I ended things like separated effective December 2019 with my ex-husband, we still lived together for another 9 months in LA because of COVID. No one was renting out apartments in that first several months. Like neither of us could afford to move out on our own. We were trying to figure out our next steps while like the world was frozen. And so during that 9 months, I feel like I did a lot of healing within myself, but I never fully recognized just how much that manipulation rocked my fucking soul. And like literally until today, I don't think I ever fully realized or gave it the energy and time to say, oh, that was all emotional abuse. And I mean, there are so many examples of infidelity and manipulation and dishonesty and just straight up shadiness that I could give. And I don't need to get into that. But it was all happening and I knew it was happening. But I learned to just put my own intuition to the side because I wanted to keep the peace. And like I said, when I moved to Portland, like I had just moved out of LA from living with my ex-husband still for 9 months after a separation. And within a couple of weeks is when I met this guy. So I really didn't have enough time to recognize the ways that this other 11-year relationship really rocked my self-confidence, really shot my self-confidence down, really built up self-doubt, really took a bullet to my intuition. So anyway, over time, I started realizing the darkness that was behind my ex-boyfriend, the manipulation, the dishonesty, like all of the very similar things that I dealt with my ex-husband, except this guy was way more sly about it. Like to the point where I still don't have proof of a lot of it. And I don't have proof of a lot of it to either of these guys, which has definitely been a whole other facet of healing where, and I want to do an episode on this, how do you find closure when you're not getting it from someone else? And to be honest, I think that closure always has to come from within you. It's just that sometimes as humans, we get more peace with knowing that it came from someone else because we're always looking externally, right? But that's for another episode. And so the similarities in both of these relationships were actually really massive, but it didn't feel like that at first with this ex-boyfriend. I was like, oh my God, he's so nice to me. We do such cool things. I can have tough conversations. He hears me out. He doesn't gaslight me. Well, he was gaslighting me in way different ways. And even when I did catch either of these men in lies, I wanted to believe that they were capable of change. I wanted to believe them when they looked me in the eye and said, I am so sorry I hurt you. It will never happen again. And I would say, okay, I don't want to have this conversation again. And lo and behold, that conversation would happen again, depending on the guy, like a month, 2 months later. With my ex-husband, I would have these conversations. I'm not kidding you. Like it was a cycle of like every 3 months. And we were together for 11 years, okay? It was like every 3 months we would have a conversation of like, yo, you're not being nice to me again. You're doing these same things over and over. What's going on? And he'd be like, I'm so sorry. I don't want to treat you that way. Things would be great for like a month. And then it would start falling by the wayside again. I'm recording this episode because I want you to recognize that is trauma. It creates trauma. It creates scar tissue to your soul, to your mind, and to your body sometimes. You don't deserve that. If you're listening to this and you're in a similar situation, get the fuck out. Yes, it's scary. Yes, you don't know what's going to happen, but you deserve so much more. Don't let that continue to scar who you are, because otherwise you're going to be doing years and years and years of recon work like I have. Don't be like me. But looking back now, I can see all of these patterns so clearly. But when you're in a situation like that, you can't see the patterns. I love the metaphor of when you're standing like front and center to a flag, you can't see what is on the flag because it looks paper thin. And when you walk over to the side and it's flapping in the wind, you can actually see what is on the flag. And you go, oh shit, that's a red flag. But when you're right in front of it, you can't see it because you're in it. And so that's why I think that like there are some like shows and movies that are coming out now. Like It Ends With Us. And then I just watched the Gabby Petito story, the van lifer who unfortunately was killed by her boyfriend. It's just like, or fiance, even worse. I think that these stories are really important to be getting out there because more and more women are waking the fuck up and returning to our power and recognizing, no, we don't have to be in that. And there was like a stat at the end of that docu-series that I watched yesterday about Gabby Petito that says about half of women in the US deal with abuse. Half of the women. Don't be another one of those statistics. You don't fucking deserve it. You don't deserve it. I recognized once I got out of each of these situations how easy it was to manipulate me. How much I bent over backwards to meet my partner's needs while ignoring my own. And I think that unfortunately, this is a whole other story, but I think unfortunately some of that came from the way that I was raised. I was raised that you have to do things to get people's love. You have to constantly be doing for other people. And I also had multiple people in my life growing up that let me down, that I believed in, that I put full trust in as a child, and they completely let me down. And it really hurt. And I think that carried with me because I didn't want to be let down by these two men. And so I did anything I could to convince myself that I was not being let down. But the hardest part is that I always knew something fell off. I knew. But I was constantly convincing myself over and over and over, and I was letting myself be convinced over and over and over. I think one of the biggest reasons that I didn't want to call it abuse was because I know people who have had it so much fucking worse than me. And I have so much empathy for them. I would never want to compare my own experiences to someone who's been through like really extreme violence or situations that are far more traumatic. But in doing that, I was minimizing my own pain like severely. In my mind, I labeled it as little t trauma. Like, because that somehow made it more acceptable, like easier to just brush off and be like, whatever, it's something that happened. I'm going to move on. And I do think outwardly, I was able to move on from each of these situations with so much grace. And I still, to this day, had compassion for those people. For the people that I was in relationship with and for myself, that version of myself that wasn't able to get out earlier than I did, that didn't have the courage, that didn't have the self-confidence. But now I've realized that that was kind of another form of gaslighting. I made it acceptable, kind of. I was telling myself like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Other people have been through worse. You're fine. But because of that, I didn't actually let myself fully process the depth of what I've gone through in those relationships. And something really interesting is that when I've told people the story that I told in the episode that I talked all about my ex-boyfriend and the narcissistic abuse that happened, people are like dumbfounded. They're like, holy fuck, you have really been through it. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, but I'm better for it. I'm happy. Like, you know, I'm proud of myself. I'm happier and healthier now. And I look at where I am now, but I don't know that I have ever fully let myself go to the depths of where that took me in my soul. Because my mind is so fucking strong, honestly. And I almost feel like I've like built up my mindset too much in a way to where like I just let my mind power me through it. I remember after breaking up with my ex-boyfriend, I just was like, fuck it. Like, yeah, I was really sad, of course. But I just said, you know what? I'm just going to like do me and lean into myself and fuck that guy. How dare he? Yes, of course, I still had moments of deep processing, lots of journaling, meditation, that sort of thing. And I, started seeing a therapist again and all of that stuff, okay? But I don't think that I ever really got down to the nitty gritty. It's almost like I was unknowingly slapping Band-Aids on things that were bullet holes. And it wasn't like I was trying to. I wasn't like, oh, it's fine. I'm just going to slap this on there. It was almost like a coping mechanism. It's like I was doing the best that I could then. And now I'm dealing with the repercussions of that, except I don't look at it as repercussions. I don't know that that's the right word for it. I look at it as now I have more capacity in myself. I have more time. I have more energy. I have more capacity to actually go to the depths that I need to dive a little bit deeper. And I'm so grateful for it. And I'm so grateful to be going into this with you. I'm grateful to be sharing this energy with you to do this. So here's the truth. You don't need to compare your trauma to anyone else's. Trauma is trauma. Big T, little t, doesn't fucking matter. Trauma is trauma. Your experience is completely valid. Whether or not it fits into some weird predefined category that isn't actually real of quote unquote bad enough, whether or not it feels to your perception like it's as bad as someone else's, remember that everyone's perception of life is completely different. To one person, spraining their ankle could cause an immense amount of trauma in their scope of their life. And to them, that might be the same level of trauma as you breaking both of your legs. We don't know. Everyone's experience is so different. We all have different scopes that we live through. We all have different perceptions of life. And we have to honor that. Naming your trauma, naming any abuse you've been through and endured doesn't take away from someone else's suffering. Let me say that again. Naming your trauma, your abuse, does not mean that it takes away from someone else's suffering. It just means that you are allowing yourself to fully acknowledge your own. That's all it's doing. There's enough pie to go around for everyone. Just because you need to talk a little bit more outwardly with your friends or family, you need to verbally process a little bit more. Just because you need to acknowledge that abuse is abuse and trauma is trauma, doesn't mean that someone else's trauma isn't valid. Doesn't mean that you're not empathetic or compassionate towards their situation. It just means that you're letting yourself fully acknowledge your own. And you know what I think is really wonderful about that is the ripple effect is so fucking real. The ripple of energy that will happen when you allow yourself to fully step into, I endured this trauma, I am naming it, I am claiming it, I am moving through it, I'm wading into that water. The more you do that and the more openly you do that, when you heal out loud, you help others feel like they can do that too. And when we heal out loud, that's when everyone gets to heal a little bit more. I wish that I had access to as many people that are talking about this type of thing now as what's happening now. I feel like I said that in a really weird way, but I hope you get what I'm saying. Back when I was dealing with all of this abuse, I wish I knew what manipulation really looks like in a relationship, what emotional abuse really looks like in a relationship. I wish I knew, and I wish someone would have told me. I wish someone would have shaken me and woken me the fuck up. Now we have so many more resources, so many more people talking about this, and I hope that this trajectory continues because we need more people healing out loud. It empowers other people, and we are here to empower each other. We're here to love each other. We're here to support each other. And that's how it happens, creating a ripple effect. Speaking of wading into the water, this makes me think of something that one of my past therapists told me that really stuck with me. So we did some EMDR therapy together, which can be really, really powerful for traumatic experiences. And she was talking about how trauma doesn't just disappear, but you can diffuse it. You're not going to be able to make it go away. Like memories are memories. But you can make it feel a little bit less intense. So the example she gave me of how EMDR works is if you were to put a tablespoon of salt into a small glass of water and then you went to drink it, that water is going to taste disgusting. It's going to taste so unbearably salty, right? But if you poured that same tablespoon of salt into like a giant bucket, the salt's still there, right? But it's not going to completely overpower it. You're not going to taste it nearly as much. And that's how healing works when you're working with your trauma. The trauma doesn't just vanish, but over time, as we allow ourselves time to expand and process and create more space in our lives, that trauma doesn't get to take up as much room. You're not giving it as much power. You're not giving it as much space and energy. And then it stops defining us. It's no longer allowed to consume us the way that it did before. And that has been my experience. 4 years after breaking up with my ex-boyfriend, and it's been 5+ years after leaving my marriage, I still do get triggered by certain like TV shows or movies that depict narcissistic abuse or manipulation. And for a really long time, I was like, why does this still bother me? Like, shouldn't I be over it? It's been years at this point. And I'm in a powerful, beautiful, incredible relationship now. Shouldn't I be healed from this? I don't understand. But the truth is, the healing isn't about trying to erase the past, because you can't. It's about learning, how do I integrate this without letting it completely control me? I don't want, quote unquote, healing to be my new identity, but how do I give it enough space so I can really process, expand, create more space in the spaces that I'm able to excavate? Meaning, as I'm excavating out this trauma from these cavities within my soul, how do I fill it and pack in as much love as possible? And I'll give you some tips at the end of this episode for that. The point there is that you might still get triggered. You might still forever get triggered by certain things, no matter how much your circumstances change. And so it's like recognizing, how do I find ways to regulate my nervous system after those experiences faster and faster? How do I remind myself, no, I'm actually safe now. This is not my experience. Because honestly, your body and your mind and your soul, they don't necessarily know the difference between you watching a TV show and getting super worked up and you getting super worked up in your daily life. I want you to remember that. And this is why, yet another topic, it's so important to be really paying attention to what you're consuming. Not just in your belly, but through your eyeballs and your ears too. There's a reason that certain people are miserable when all they do is listen to murder mystery podcasts and watch Real Housewives, right? Drama. I'm not shaming you if you like doing those things. I'm just saying, mix in some lighthearted things here and there, okay? We don't need to be triggered all the time. We're already triggered enough with the shit going on in our world right now. Okay, onward. So like I said, meeting Max has been a huge part of my healing. Being in a actual, safe, real, loving partnership is the most powerful thing ever. The interesting part is just being in this relationship has not done the healing for me. It's helped, but you have to realize that it's one thing to finally step away from an unhealthy relationship, but it's a completely other thing to unlearn the patterns, the behaviors, the beliefs that you carried with you from those unhealthy relationships. Because, we're not all angels. The conditioning that happens during these unhealthy relationships, we carry with us. We at some point go crazy and start not acting as the best version of ourselves as a partner or ourself. And we carry some of those patterns with us. So in our relationship, Max and I've actually caught myself sometimes assuming the worst, thinking he was keeping something from me or bracing myself for manipulation that wasn't actually ever going to happen. There were even times when I almost sabotaged our relationship because my brain was just looking for patterns that had presented in the past with other relationships. And I was like, oh wait, they're not there. They're simply not there. What's been super healing about this relationship is that he listens. He listens. He never gaslights me. There's this trend going around on social media right now. We listen and we don't judge. Well, that's literally Max. If I bring up a concern, he never turns it around on me. He hears me. And even if my opinion doesn't make sense to him, he will stop and he will try to understand. And we work through it together. Very quickly, I might add, which isn't always going to happen for people, but I'm very lucky to know that we will always work through things literally within 10 minutes. And it's shown me that love is not about perfection. It's about trust. It's about honesty. It's about holding space for past wounds of each person and not making them feel like a burden. No one wants to feel like a burden, but you should, in a healthy relationship, be able to say, hey, I had a little bit of time to sit with this. I am so sorry that I treated you this way. I realized that this was just some past conditioning coming through and I was trying to sabotage the relationship. I'm so sorry. And a good partner should be able to talk to you about that. They should be able to hear that, and they should be able to recognize that for whatever reason, that moment was not your highest self and that you are promising to do better. And they're not going to turn it around on you and make you feel like a horrible person for that. Because again, we're all acting on our own perception, our own experiences, and our own traumas. And while he had not been through nearly as extreme as I had in relationships, with his ex-partner that he was with years and years before for not very long, he also had some traumas that he went through where he was not his best self. She was not a great partner. There was a lot of stuff that happened that he also had to work through. And so in a real, true, raw, honest relationship, you'll be able to work through those things and share with the partner, I'm working through this right now. Will you please just hold space for this? And they will. Empathy is about showing up for the other person, whether or not you fully understand what they're going through. You're like, you know what? I'm here for you either way. We show up with compassion, we show up with love, and more than anything, we show up with gratitude for this opportunity to be in a positive relationship and to find that healing from it. But honey, I gotta tell you, you're not gonna find that new positive blossoming relationship without getting the fuck out of the uncomfortable, unhealthy, toxic one you're in now. So if you take anything out of this episode, I want it to be these 4 little takeaways. Your trauma is valid. It doesn't matter how big or how small you think it is. You don't have to compare your pain to someone else's to justify your own healing. Naming your experience is actually really powerful, and you should not shy away from it. It's not about dwelling on the past. It's about freeing yourself from what you've been doing, which is minimizing it. The next takeaway is healing is not forgetting. It's expanding. Think about that salt in water metaphor. The experience is going to stay, but it does not have to overwhelm you for the duration of this lifetime. And then the last one is that safe, healthy relationships do exist. If you're used to dysfunction, I feel like I'm always like, this could be another podcast episode, but this really could. Healthy love can feel so weird at first. It can feel foreign. It can feel awkward. It can feel like a little boring sometimes, honestly. But after you get over that little hump of trying to sabotage, you're like, oh shit, wait, this is really nice. I don't have to worry at all in this relationship. I never have to feel like I'm walking on eggshells. I never have to worry about what they're thinking. I never have to worry if they support me or love me or what they're doing outside of their time with me. A safe relationship, a healthy relationship, a loving relationship, a fun relationship, it does exist and you do deserve it. The thing about all of this is that I'm still in the process of unpacking this because like I said, this was a realization this morning during my meditation and I don't have all the answers. But what I do know is that it does get easier because when you release that resistance within yourself, you stop fighting yourself along the way. And you start allowing yourself to fully feel the emotions, name the trauma, heal, start the process of true deep release. That's when it really starts to get easier and that's when it starts to feel lighter. If this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear. Please, as always, feel free to DM me, share this episode with someone who you feel like maybe needs to hear it, or maybe just take a nice deep breath, remind yourself, my experience matters. I matter. I want to take you on a little guided visualization to call back your power. It feels really aligned right now. It's really short. Stay with me. Before I do that, I want to remind you about my company, Lucid Hydration, which is a functional mushroom nootropic electrolyte beverage. It's just a powder that you mix with your water. It comes in little stick packs. I usually just throw it in a water bottle of 20 ounces or so of water. Shake it up and you are ready. I love either sipping on it in mid-afternoon when I don't want more caffeine, but I need something for energy. The nootropics in there and the functional mushrooms are really good for kind of leveling you out as well. I always say from like the 6 different functional mushrooms, the 3 nootropics in there, your body and your mind kind of just like take what it needs from those things. So there's so many benefits, all natural, no funky added ingredients or fillers or colors or dyes, nothing artificial ever. And the thing that really sets it apart is that the electrolytes are not from really processed sodium sources like a lot of products on the market right now. It's from sea salt and coconut water powder, as well as magnesium and potassium. So you're getting all the good stuff, none of the crap, and it's really good for daily use. So I highly recommend trying it out. And also, if you want to support me and my business, like, why not? If you love me and Max, you need to get yourself some. Like I said, it's called Lucid Hydration. Go to www.lucidhydration.com. You can use my code Rachel. It'll give you 22% off your order because I love you. Free shipping on all orders always. All right, let's get into this quick little visualization and then I'll let you go. So we're going to start by making sure you're comfy first and foremost, whether you're sitting or laying or whatever you're doing. If you're driving, please pull over. And close your eyes super softly, gently. Take a nice deep breath in and out. Let's give our shoulders a little roll. I feel like we're a little tight here. Give your shoulders a roll backward and forward. Move your head side to side. Maybe give it a little roll if you need to. Let your jaw unclench. Let your tongue drop from the roof of your mouth. And just settle into this moment. Just a couple of minutes together to call back our power, to find that groundedness. That's much better. We're so much more relaxed now. We needed that extra head roll. So I want you to imagine a warm golden light above you. Like if there was a gentle glow of the sun just at dawn. The light is pure, it's radiant, it's filled with just unconditional love. And with each inhale, that light cascades down your forehead, the back of your head, your shoulders, your heart, your lungs, filling you with warmth and strength. And it starts dripping down into every part of your body, every cavity, every cell, and you start feeling radiant and bright. Now, without breaking this sense of truly high vibrational energy, bring to mind any moments where you feel like you lost pieces of yourself. Any time when your voice was silenced, or your truth was questioned, or your worth was diminished. And just picture those moments like little scattered fragments of light just floating outside of you. Those pieces of yourself that were fragmented from these moments, floating around you, beautiful little sparkly glimmers. And with each inhale, gently call those pieces back, almost like a magnet slowly coming to you. They're returning to you one by one. Sparks of golden light being drawn back into your body. Your voice, your truth, your worth, your power, your strength, your confidence, your beauty, anything else that feels resonant, just drawing back into your body one by one by one. Feel them reintegrating, creating this sense of wholeness again within your mind, your body, your soul. And then when you feel like you've been able to draw all of those pieces back, place your hands over your heart. Whisper to yourself, I am whole. I am powerful. My truth is valid. My light is unbreakable. And feel these words sinking so deeply into your being, into every part of your essence, like roots grounding you firmly into the earth. And as you do so, that light within you, all of those pieces that you called back, create a light that is so bright. And visualize this golden light expanding beyond you. It forms almost like a protective cocoon all around you. It's strong, it's radiant, it's impenetrable. This is your energy, your power, your unshakable truth. You're not broken. You're not lost. You know the way. It's simply up to you to listen and to act on that. You're returning home to yourself, one step at a time. Take one more deep breath in, and as you exhale, feel a sense of peace, of power, of reclamation. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. And know that that light, that strength, that power are always with you. You're whole, you're powerful, you are free. Thank you for taking this time with me. Thank you for taking this time with yourself. I feel so blessed, so honored, so humbled to be able to share and co-create this beautiful energetic container with you. I love you all so, so much. If you could take 2 seconds to go rate and review this podcast on whatever platform you're listening on, whether that means leaving a comment or a formal review, it would mean the absolute world to me. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you on the next episode. Until then, keep shining, keep aligning. See you next time.